Hi, lovely. So, along with me as I share with you all how I got started with sewing. So, I believe that 80% to 70% of tellers have something or a story to tell on how they got started with sewing. So, years back as a Nigerian, I wrote my WAEC, also known as West African Examination Council, which I did very well, especially in English language. So, that same year, I proceeded to also write an exam called JAM, which is Joint Admission and Matriculation Board, which is also very necessary to write if you're thinking or wishing to further your education in the higher institution. I didn't do well in JAMB for that year, so I cancelled going to the university that year from my thoughts. The upper year, I gave JAMB another try and I did absolutely well with a JAMB score of 248 against the cutoff mark of 230 that was required for the choice of course and department. It was a thing of joy for me as I already started planning and seeing myself as a university babe in few months. So little did I know that my choice of school would greatly affect my chances of admission that year as they were too indigenous. Okay, long story cut short, I wrote their post UME and I did perfectly fine, but yet I was denied admission. It was a devastating experience for me because judging by my performance in JAM and post UME, I was 100% eligible for this admission. There and then, I decided I was never going to further my education in Nigeria anymore, as it was very clear to me that the admission denial was maybe done on purpose. And I want you all to know that as at the time all this were happening, I was jobless at home, doing nothing for myself, and I had no source of personal income. So back to the story. My mom persuaded me to go pick another jam form, which I reluctantly did on the last day the form would cease to be sold anymore. Still jobless, remember, I flashed back on the practicals and little culinary skills which I acquired in secondary school during all these home economics practicals, which I believe a lot of us did, both food and nutrition. So I decided to at least upgrade my skills before I start another admission process. And that is how it all started. So as at that time, it was really difficult for me to get someone who did exactly what I wanted for myself. Most of these people I met were the real definition of jack of all trades. Should I add master of none? I don't think though is necessary. The only suitable place that was up to my taste was extremely far from my place or my home or my house, as I was spend 600 naira daily on transport, excluding feeding. So my mom objected. A friend of her, which is my mom, finally directed us somewhere not so far from our home, promoting the place and referring to the woman as an expert in her field of work. I got there with my mom and her friend and I was asked to talk. In my words, good day, ma, because the woman is also a mother. I really want to learn how to perfectly prepare different delicacies and intercontinental dishes. Emphasis on that. In brackets, intercontinental, right? With pastries, cakes, and not all of that. So the woman admitted to doing all of that, my dear people. So on that same day, I was given a list of tailoring materials to get after my mom must have paid 70% of what the woman charged. I was really surprised when the list of tailoring materials was handed to me. But later in my mind, I thought it was more like an extra package of what I paid for earlier, you understand? So the next day, I resumed as instructed with my tailoring materials, 2 cartons of malt and 2 cartons of biscuit. Oh my god. Okay. My people, I was asked to go and learn how to pedal a sewing machine. I was really confused, but I still kept my cool. So miraculously, that same day, I was perfect with pedaling a sewing machine. That was my first time. The next thing that was handed over to me was a piece of fabric with letters of the alphabet boldly written on it with chalk, and I was asked to sew accordingly on those letters. That was when I spoke and asked their most senior why I was doing this first instead of my delicacies, or rather, start with pastry introduction, teaching you, all of that, okay, because I was novice in all of that, right? So, in her words, which is a senior, she said, when mommy comes back, you ask her, but for now, finish up what you are asked to do. Mommy came back. I went to her and laid my complaints. She told me not to worry, that she already had 2 people who came a week early before me and they were yet to do their practicals. So we were definitely going to do it together. So after this, I felt a bit relaxed and resumed with my sewing. LOL. Why sewing? All my thoughts was buried in the practicals and become the new, Hilda Bassi, though she hadn't been popular, but you understand what I mean. Days went by and I was still practicing with fabrics on how to get it right to sew and still thinking of the practicals ahead. One fateful day, our mommy came back from market with a bag which contained flour, sugar, butter, all the stuffs that were required for baking. I leaped for joy as I told myself that the day has finally come. Minutes later, 10 sachets of Sima's butter was given to my other colleagues to share into two and start mixing them manually in a very big mortar with pesto. I asked why it was so, and they all said that I should wait for mommy to come. Again, I kept my cool because I'm not a troublesome person. I'm not a troublesome person. When they were finally done with the butter and the sugar mixture and all of that, my dear people, our mommy came because that's what we usually call her, as stated earlier, and started mixing everything together without even briefing me or us on how to go about the measurements or the purpose of each ingredient or what each of these ingredients we are supposed to do, or all of that. So as a novice that I knew nothing. It was just few practicals that was done in secondary school which we didn't really know much about. Okay, I was just there looking while she was mixing everything together. I asked a question after several minutes of confusion, but I didn't get the answer I needed. Where exactly should I start from with my questions after all? But our mommy has been in this field for years. She could easily know each measurement by mere looking at them, right? So long story short, at home I did several practicals with the ingredients I saw at her place, but all of my practicals came out nice, fluffy and tasty because I didn't know the right measurements to use. Some came out too oily, I mean for my cake. Remember, we've not done anything. It was just me looking at her while she was mixing everything for her cake, which really came out perfect. So that was my reason for going home to start or commence my own practicals. So some of mine came out too oily because of excess butter, some very hard, some will never rise, like after baking and wasting gas and everything to bake, my cake will never rise. They were not just coming out good at all. So the last straw that brought the camel's back was the last one I did. My eggs weren't enough, so I added water. So lo and behold, I made a loaf of bread. It was not funny at all because more like in a week I do my practicals like 5 times, and when I go back to her, I refer back to our mommy to tell her this is what I experienced. She doesn't give a direct answer. She doesn't tell you this is the reason why. She just wants you to, I don't know how, but she just wants you to just know it. So I believe that it was actually done on purpose, right? So she was not being intentional with the teaching. So there and then, my people, that was how I gave up. You might be wondering on the delicacy we bargained earlier. Laugh out loud, okay? She only prepared a normal dish only when she is paid to cook in an occasion. This is the whole thing that weren't adding up at all. I finally channeled my energy to sewing and dropped the idea of being a chef. Though the sewing there wasn't top notch, all these roadside tellers, and we were even taught by seniors, that is, people that were there before us. You understand what I mean, right? So on that same year, I finally got admission and I ceased going there anymore. Then should I say luckily for me, or fortunately enough, during one of the ASU strike while I was in school, I went home. So that was when I decided to go for an upgrade in a well-to-do, strictly fashion house or academy. That is the only thing they do right there. So I was really taught as a beginner. I had to begin my classes from the beginners. You understand all of that, with the introduction of sewing materials and all of that. So guys, this is my journey into the world of tailors. This is how I got started with sewing. So feel free to also share how you got started with sewing. Was it by faith? Was it by choice? Was it out of boredom? Was it out of passion for sewing? Or was it out of determination? Thanks for sticking with me today. I'll see you all in my next one. Have a lovely time ahead of you.